I'm Alex. This is going to kind of serve as an intro video, but I also want to make it interesting, so I'm going to take you guys on my journey through retro gaming. As you can see, I collect retro games. Mainly what I'm going to talk about here is retro gaming and game collecting, as well as just kind of like media analysis of games and games as art. To give a little context to who I am and where I began, my first console was the Xbox 360, which I got in 2008. My brother had asked for it for Christmas, and my first game on it was right here. It is this this legendary double pack of Indiana Jones and Kung Fu Panda. Of course, we all know the Lego games are solid, but that Kung Fu Panda game's not to be slept on. It's a pretty fun little action platformer. So that's where I started. Another game I played very early on was Need for Speed Carbon. To this date, my favorite Need for Speed game, probably my favorite racing game of all time, and I love racing games. The first console I ever got that was mine, though, was the 3DS, which I think I got in 2013 with Pokemon X, and I dumped 1,000 hours into Pokemon X, which is impressive. People clap when I tell them I've played Pokemon X for 1,000 hours, you know. But then skipping forward a little bit, I was the ripe old age of 12 or 13. This was in 2014, and I was looking for a copy of Pokemon Heart Gold. So I went into a GameStop and I asked the guy if they would have any copies of that. He said no, and laughed at me. He laughed in my face for asking for a copy of Pokemon Heart Gold all the way back in 2014, and that was really my introduction to collecting for retro systems. I did also get Pokemon Black and White 2 around that time though, and they were $30 and not like 200 or whatever they go for, and those are some of my favorite Pokemon games ever, so I'm very happy about that. I still to this day have not found Pokemon Heart Gold or Soul Silver for a price that I can afford. I remember my friend had a copy of it back in high school, and I would beg him all the time, hey, sell it to me for $60. That's more than you paid for it. He wouldn't do it, which is fair. It's worth more than that, but, you know, it would have been nice. It would have been awesome. I'll skip forward a little bit more. I'd say in around 2021, I started going on a quest to get a bunch of old racing games, mainly Need for Speed. I wanted to play some of the old Forzas as well. So I started looking into that. I got Most Wanted on the 360, which is now like $70, and I can't play it because I left my 360 at my parents' house. I only have my Xbox One, and it's not backwards compatible, which is also why I no longer have my original copy of Need for Speed Carbon. I still have it, it's just not with me. Because, you know, I'll be moving around a lot. I'm kind of in and out of apartments right now. And I can't have 25 consoles with me when I'm moving. I can only have 20. It makes it a lot easier. I didn't consider myself a retro collector at that time. I didn't like buy any new systems. I was really just buying stuff for 360 and 3DS and DS and stuff like that. Consoles I just had access to from existing, and Switch, of course. But then the real catalyst was this game right here, Snoopy versus the Red Baron. This was a game I played a ton on PC as a kid. It's an awesome, genuinely good, like, flying game made by Bandai, featuring the Peanuts characters. I'm a huge Snoopy fan. I got a Snoopy tattoo right here, and a fierce farmer's tan, very fierce. I only recently got this complete in box, actually. This was so early in my collecting days that I was like, I don't need the case. Who cares about that? It's just extra plastic. But, you know, the whole point of this is extra plastic. So we got it complete in box. I also have it in PSP. Don't even worry about that. So my first steps as a collector was I bought a PS2, GameCube, and an N64. Going back to Pokemon a bit, as a kid I remember I was at my friend's house and we were talking to his older brother, and he showed me a ROM of Fire Red, and that blew my mind because I was like, I think I was into the cards first of Pokemon, and I really wanted to play the games, but I didn't have, at that time I only had an Xbox, so I couldn't. So I immediately went home that day and downloaded just a ton of viruses on my mom's computer, looking up like free Pokemon online. But I eventually did find a way to play free Pokemon online. I played Pokemon Red and Blue, didn't beat them because I was like 10 and didn't have that kind of executive function control to actually beat games. I have since beat Pokemon Blue, and it's fun. I really love those early Pokemon games, but that is definitely kind of where retro games became like mythical in my mind. And even at that time, I don't know if like Gen 3 of Pokemon was even retro yet, but you know, those old games that I couldn't access, I was like, these are amazing things, I want to have them. And now I do, I have them. I still own a Pokemon Emerald because it is $120. I'm not paying that. So yeah, where I am today is I have about 1,200 games. I have most for Switch. I have a bunch of PS2 though. My NES collection's also pretty big. I have basically every console that is not like a TurboGrafx 16 level of obscure. That'd be cool to have, but I don't have the space or money for that. I have to pick and choose a little bit. I love weird stuff. I love weird games that people probably haven't heard of. I really like looking for overlooked games, which means I have a lot of weird gaming blind spots. I've barely played Zelda. I'm starting to play A Link Between Worlds right now, and I do like it, but I barely played Zelda. I've never played like Metal Gear Solid, Gears of War, God of War. I meant God of War. I don't really care about that I haven't played Gears of War, but I also haven't played Gears of War. That's also true. So yeah, moving back into like 2021, 2022, around there is really when I started getting into retro collecting, and I consider myself a retro collector. One of the next consoles I got was an NES. I actually got my dad's old NES that I didn't know he had. I since have found a top loader NES. He had just the original one. If you have an original NES and you're struggling with it, it is worth getting a top loader, because wow, it works like a charm. It never doesn't read a game. It's just so much better. It's way more reliable than the original NES. But I'd say that console gave me one of my first really like wow moments with a retro game, which was Ninja Gaiden 2. I remember just seeing the intro for that game for the first time, and that was like a magical moment. That intro was so like cool and melodramatic and over the top. It has just like a full cutscene with dialogue and everything, and just like this sick retro tune playing over it. I also make music, so I always appreciate a game that has good music, especially retro games. Another game in a similar vein to that had a similar effect on me, I'd say, was Streets of Rage 2. I love Streets of Rage. I love beat-em-ups in general. I played Castle Crashers on the 360 a ton as a kid, and that's really kind of where that love sprouts from. And, you know, playing Streets of Rage 2, another just amazing intro to a game with maybe one of my favorite songs from a game ever. And then, you know, the gameplay in that is just so crisp. The sprites look amazing. That's just genuinely an amazing game that 100% still holds up. I'd say Ninja Gaiden 2 still holds up, but you have to you have to be in the mood for it. It is definitely very hard. Another early on discovery for me within the realm of retro gaming was Kirby. I did not play many platformers as a kid, with the exception of Rayman, because he was cool. I don't know, he wore a hoodie, I guess. But all the other platformers, I was like, you know, that's kid stuff. I like RPGs and Pokemon. That's that's what real adults play, which was not smart of me, because Kirby's amazing. I love Kirby so much that I now have a $20 stick and poke. That's some good lighting. You can see him right next to Wooper. Also, Kirby was originally non-binary. That's sick. He's a dude now, unfortunately. Wish he could have stayed non-binary. That'd be cool. But, you know, America had to make him angry and not gender ambiguous. So yeah, my first experience with Kirby happened after I started collecting, and was on the Wii with Kirby's Return to Dreamland, which is an amazing game. It got a remake on the Switch, of course, which I haven't played it yet, but I will. That's just like, it's like 2D Kirby greatness. You really can't get a better 2D Kirby game. I'd say there are some other Kirby games that maybe excite me a tiny bit more, just because they kind of do something special with the formula, like Kirby 64 and the Crystal Shards. That game's amazing. Of course, Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, another just amazing Kirby game. Even Kirby Planet Robobot, you know, just super awesome games. I'd say those four, though, including Return to Dreamland, generally are around my favorites. Another super early on Kirby game I played was Nightmare in Dreamland, which is probably my fifth favorite game, right after those four Kirby games. The boss battle with DDD in that is like so intense. It's like probably my favorite Kirby boss fight. It is the classic DDD theme, and it hits perfectly in that game. It's so cool. And I always also had a fascination with handhelds, for sure. I got a Game Boy Advance, not SP, and a PSP pretty early in my collecting days. I got my PSP from a lady at a yard sale. She gave me that Hot Shots Golf Open T2, which genuinely blew me away, which is funny because it's like a kind of run-of-the-mill arcade golf game on the PSP, but I love Hot Shots, the whole series now. So yeah, I played my PSP a ton when I first started collecting. I still play it, playing Ridge Racer right now. Ridge Racer, you know what's up. It's awesome. Really great arcade racing game. I did not play my OG GBA too much in the beginning because that screen does not hold up. Wow, you really need a backlit screen. So I now have a GBA SP, which I do play quite often, and that's awesome. I definitely have an affinity for kind of the quirky and weird, so if you stick around on this channel, you'll be seeing a bunch of lesser known games, overlooked games, cutesy games. If you couldn't tell by my list of like blind spots, you know, God of War, Metal Gear Solid, that kind of stuff. I'm not huge into like super gritty, realistic games. They just don't really do it for me. I'm more into colorful stuff. So I have a collection full of oddities, I have a brain that can talk about video games at length for a long time, and I have at least a tiny bit of video editing ability, so stick around and you'll see a lot of that. Thank you.